Hello everyone, we are joined by State Representative Matt Smith from Allegheny County. There is a lot to talk about today, but right now in Pennsylvania, virtually everyone is talking about the Pennsylvania state budget and what's going to happen.
Yeah, and Kevin, that's going to be the first thing we deal with this year and will be the front and center highlight over the next couple of months. And we have very serious fiscal problems here in the Commonwealth. We're looking at a structural deficit anywhere, estimates I've seen anywhere from $3 billion to $5 billion. And we need to find a way to do more with less. And at the same time, preserve the key investments that we've made in different areas, such as education, K through 12 funding, as well specifically as early childhood education. Because I think in those areas, that's where we're really seeing investments pay off, whether it's in smaller classrooms, in smaller class sizes, better student-to-teacher ratios, more technology in the classroom. And by investing in our young people, whether it's at the early childhood level or K through 12, we're going to see that investment pay back over the long term. So the way I look at the budget is we certainly need to tighten our belts. We certainly need to do more with less, and we need to be fiscally conservative and fiscally disciplined. But we also need to make sure that we continue to make the investments, particularly in areas like education, that serve us long term and make us competitive, not only as a state, but as a country relative to other countries. Because we've got to make sure that our students have the ability to compete in a global economy. And they're no longer competing with students from Cleveland and Boston. They're competing with students from London and Bangalore and Dubai. And so we need to make sure that we're giving them the proper tools, that we're giving teachers the proper tools to use to make sure our kids have that educational background to allow them to compete effectively in a global economy.
Yeah, and when you talk about the state budget, one issue that always comes up is the legislative surplus.
Yeah, the legislative surplus is something I've long advocated for a return to taxpayers. It's about $175 million right now, and I strongly feel that that money should be returned. And as I said, we need to do more with less. That's one of the areas that we can cut up here and return it to taxpayers and put it into something that serves the long-term needs of the Commonwealth, I think, better than where it is right now. And it could be anything, as I said. Early childhood education funding is something that I'm going to strongly push for. Library funding, public television funding, because in this day and age, Kevin, when you talk about education in general and library funding specifically, library funding is actually really tied, I think, in a great way to education, because a lot of students are now going after school to the library. A lot of adults who have continuing education, whether it's online or through books, go to their local library. So we have to make sure that we're providing adequate funding to our state library system as well. And that's part of education funding, and that might be an area where we can direct those surplus dollars.
Well, certainly a lot of attention is going to be placed on the budget, but I know you have always been concerned and interested in government reform. There's a lot of issues still related to that need to be tackled.
Yeah, government reform will be another one of my priorities this session, both in the context of items like cutting the size of the legislature, cutting the budget of the legislature, but also in the area of campaign finance reform, for instance. We need to make sure that we're doing a better job of taking money out of the campaign system. There's way too much money involved, special interest money right now involved in the system, and we need to find a way to make sure we limit the influence of money in our campaigns, because that should not be the sole determinant in who wins in a particular election. So campaign finance reform will be another one of my priorities this session.
When you talk about campaigns, you can't talk about it without the idea of the district boundaries and who draws those boundaries, and that's going to be a major issue coming up over the next course of the 2 years.
It'll be a big issue, and we need to do, again, a better job at focusing on taking redistricting out of the political system, and redistricting reform is another reform that I think would go a long way towards restoring the public's faith in the way that we operate and the way that we run campaigns.
Although those are some of the government reforms and the state budget issues that you're going to be working on. But you have also introduced some bills that relate to green buildings and making sure our buildings are a little bit more environmentally conscious.
Yeah, green building will be another one of my big priorities this legislative session, as it was last session. And specifically, I'm going to reintroduce my bill that would require any developer or any owner who's using state funds, so they're receiving state funds from the Commonwealth, to develop that particular property, or if it's a renovation, the retrofit they're doing, in a green manner, and specifically up to LEED certification, because I think that's a way again, we can stretch dollars with the Commonwealth when Commonwealth dollars are used. And if Commonwealth dollars are used on a specific project, we've got to make sure that that particular building is not only done in an environmentally sound manner, but also when you build green, you're saving taxpayers money in the long run through lower energy costs every single year that that building's in operation. So at the end of the day, it's a benefit to the environment, yes, but it's also a benefit in terms of the local economy and saving taxpayers dollars. And again, we need to, it's a theme I'm going to strike all session. We need to do more with less, and by green building, we can save the taxpayer dollars when we're doing lower energy costs over the life of that building.
We mentioned local economy, so let's go back to Allegheny County. One of the primary issues for many, many families is job creation and economic development. Something you're going to be working on?
Yeah, and I've introduced a few bills, or will be introducing a few bills to provide tax credits in the green building area, and that's one way we can use green building to catalyze the local economy. The other area I've been very involved in locally in terms of economic development is in the life sciences industry, and we need to make sure that we're continuing to provide the right incentives for local businesses to grow, add new employees, and we can do that by way of tax credits, I believe. We can also do that by being smart with the state's investment in those particular areas. But life science is another area where we need to continue our job growth and job creation.
Well, one final issue that virtually everyone in the state is talking about at one point or another is distracted driving, getting people to put down their cell phones when they're trying to get behind the wheel.
Yeah, Kevin, it's probably the one or two issue of the most frequent issues I hear about from constituents. That's right up there. Unfortunately, we passed a strong distracted driving ban last year that would have banned texting while driving and handheld cell phone use while driving. We made it a primary offense in the House, sent it over to the Senate, and unfortunately the Senate weakened it and watered it down to such an extent, and they made any offense in that area a secondary offense. They sent that back over. We rejected it, I think, in a very proper manner. We did it in a bipartisan way, and we've got to have strong distracted driving legislation that would completely ban texting and handheld cell phone use while driving. It's a public safety issue, and the time is long overdue for action in Pennsylvania on that issue.
All right. Well, we are out of time, but we want to say thank you to State Representative Matt Smith for joining us.